apologies for absence. Sorry, Rhiannon.
Yes, I've had apologies from Councillor Morris-Cook.
Thank you. Moving on, I move that the minutes of the Cabinet meeting of the 11th of December 2024 be approved as a correct record. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 3, I have not agreed to any urgent items of business this evening, so I move on to item 4. Does anybody have any declaration of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Item 5, statements of the leader. I have no statement this evening other than what was contained on the agenda. Item 6, briefings on policy, budget and other issues. There are none this evening. And item 7, no petitions have been submitted by members of the public. Item 8, I'm not aware of any questions submitted by non-executive members. Item 9, I am not aware of any matters referred to the Cabinet for consideration by an overview and scrutiny committee. So we move on to item 10, which is devolution and local elections 2025. Can I ask Councillor Cockshaw if he would like to give an update from this evening's General Services Committee, and can I thank Councillor Cockshaw for chairing the meeting at short notice?
Oh, thank you, Leader. Just to give Cabinet a quick update, I know some Cabinet members did either attend, take part or observe the meeting, but just in general, the General Services Committee has voted in favour of the proposed recommendations. Councillor Wall proposed a working group to be set up should any application to join the priority programme be accepted. That means that have cross-party support in terms of discussions into feeding into advise Cabinet on matters of devolution and local government reform from across all 49 of us. Overall, members did agree with, obviously, the principle devolution, local government reform. There's a lot of opportunities Thurrock could have here. It was quite a good discussion. Recommendation 1 was approved unanimously. Recommendations 2 and 3 were approved, except all but one member abstaining, myself. But apart from that, there is a general consensus for Cabinet to proceed and take part in the priority programme and see what we can get for Thurrock.
Councillor Cockshaw, thank you. Does any member of Cabinet have any questions for Councillor Cockshaw? No? Okay. George, thank you. I think it's important that we look at the two different issues that we have before us this evening. The first is the move to devolution, the creation of a combined authority under the leadership of a directly elected mayor. I think that most of us here have agreed for some time that the United Kingdom is over-centralised, one of the most over-centralised countries anywhere, certainly in Europe, and it's important that we move to devolve powers from Westminster to local areas. So I welcome the move to devolution. I welcome the move to devolution on the boundaries of Greater Essex. I think there is huge potential both for us here in Thurrock and for Essex more widely. Essex is a county of 1.8 million people with an economic output of around £47 billion a year, home to 81,000 businesses, employing more than 700,000 people. We're at the heart of two nationally significant growth corridors, the Thames Estuary and the UK Innovation Corridor. We're a major trading and international gateway with two free ports, the free port that we have here, the Thames Freeport, and the Freeport East. We have two international airports at Stansted and Southend. There is huge potential here in Essex that just frankly isn't being delivered, and we need to increase productivity across the whole of Essex. And just to give an example, if we could increase our economic output to that of the South East average, then our economy would be 17% larger than it is. There is a real opportunity with a directly elected mayor to increase the size of our economy and to increase the opportunities for people that live here. And I think that's an opportunity that we should really take. Sitting alongside that is the second issue, the issue of local government reorganisation. Everybody around the Cabinet table knows that we have been struggling as hard as we can to balance the books and to deal with the size of debt that Thurrock has. And I think we have to recognise that it will be incredibly difficult to provide even a basic level of public services going forward in Thurrock. We will not be able to set a budget without exceptional financial support from the government looking forward to 2029, 2030. There is an opportunity in local government reorganisation to increase the size of the local authority, which will give us greater capacity, greater economies of scale, and give us the opportunity to provide a good level of public service to people living in Thurrock. And I think that's an opportunity that we have to take. I think this is one of those initiatives where there are more questions than answers at the moment. But I do believe that we need to seize the opportunity that is before us. And inevitably, if we are going to deliver this on the government's timetable with elections to a shadow authority by 2026, that means that it is impossible to do that and stop for a pre-election period and carry out an election in May. An all-out election in Thurrock costs somewhere in the region of £300,000. I think that's a sum of money that we cannot justify if we're going to be electing people for 1 year. Easy to justify if you're electing for 4. I'm going to stop there, but I will welcome contributions from portfolio holders. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Totally agree. One of the things that I think devolution is a really good opportunity for us going forward. Also, the cost. We can't be remiss about the cost, as this will cost for one election, and I think that we should just postpone the elections this year, go forward to whatever to go, but make sure we have the best deal possible for Thurrock and for the people of Thurrock at the same time.
Yeah, I'll just point out that delaying elections would not be the decision of this cabinet. That would be a decision of government. But I think we need to make a case to government as to why that would allow us to deliver devolution, local government reorganisation on their timescale. Councillor Muldowney.
Thank you. Yeah, just speaking a little bit more on local government reorganisation and the need to ask if we can cancel the elections next year. I do believe that's the right course of action, not only because of the expense. What's the point paying all that money out in a council that's in severe financial difficulties if we're not going to exist in 2 or 3 years' time? We have had 3 years of elections, so the whole of the council has been re-elected over the last period, and I've lost track of when the fallow year was supposed to be. I think it was this year? It was supposed to be this year. So we have had elections in a fallow year even, and then we would have had the all-outs next year, obviously, based on the previous recommendations of the BVI report. I was happy to see that in general services we had cross-party agreement, that it's just it's an unjustifiable expense, really, to the Thurrock taxpayer to go forward with those elections. If we think about local government reorganisation, it's going to be 15 separate council structures that have to be taken apart and reformed into 3 or 4 unitary councils. That is an absolutely enormous task. So having to have all-out elections and purdah when we have to have proposals on the table firm proposals on the table by autumn of this year, I just don't see how that would be achievable. So I do support the recommendation that we apply to the government to postpone next year's elections. I don't think that will give us a democratic deficit, as I've said, because we have already had a lot of elections, and some years we've had double elections with sort of general elections, 2019, 2017, 2024. And obviously I think there is the mandate to go forward with that, both with the government and the majority administration within the council here. Talking more about devolution, yes, I've always been a supporter of devolution. We're very centralised. I'm glad for Dr. Smith's briefing earlier that powers will be devolved once these organisations are set up and have proved that they can actually do the job. More and more powers will be devolved. And also in terms of creating larger unitaries, that's going to make it much, much easier for authorities to be financially viable. I think some of the problem that we've had here in Thurrock, well, there's been lots of problems, but it is difficult with a very small council tax base to sort of deliver the range of services that we have to deliver. So I think moving to a bigger footprint will definitely help across the country in terms of having financially viable organisations, and devolution of powers once that comes in, so that there can be more strategic planning on things like transport and the transport infrastructure, the skills agenda, all these things, moving to net zero. We've got the Thames Growth Estuary Board, and we've got the free ports that have already got duties to be moving on these kind of things, and working across the whole Essex area strategically with the proper powers devolved, I think could really drive some serious economic growth, but also really drive some of these measures that we need to do in order to stop climate change, stop the effects of climate change, and hopefully get all the councils in Essex back onto a firm financial footing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Leader. I think that devolution is actually a great thing for us in Thurrock, if I'm perfectly honest. I think there's been too much centralisation from government, and bringing more powers to the local communities is far more powerful. I do think that the opportunity to grow in Thurrock is far better within Thurrock, with things like transport, education, and a real growth strategy for the whole of Essex. So I fully support the devolution. My concern is that we make sure that we actually do carry out consultations with the community. I know we've talked about that in earlier meetings, that will actually happen. I think hopefully one of the things that the cross-party working group will look at is actually making sure that that actually happens, that the consultation is done properly and we're getting the full views of the people of Thurrock. As for the elections, I'm perfectly tired of the elections, and I sometimes think that our local community is. We've had elections year on year on year on year on year. Myself, I was elected in 23 for 4 years. If we go for elections, I will have served 2, and I don't think that's a very democratic process when I was actually elected for 4. So I fully support the proposals today. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Just one more thing about all of this is a communication, and what I'm really in the general services we brought up there and had a conversation. We were having a cross-party, but communication is really key, and it's key for not just our members. Our 49 needs to be on it, but also it is also for all our residents and our staff. And the last thing that I really want is that members know something and staff don't, and vice versa, and then the residents don't understand it. We need to be really clear on what is happening in Thurrock and how we do that comms. And I think it's so important that we need to really measure that as a cabinet and all through the 49 of us as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the suggestion from General Services Committee of establishing a cross-party working group to look at this is a good one, but I take that as an absolute minimum of what we need to do. We need to look at ways of making sure that our staff are involved from start to finish of this, because there will be a lot of people that are concerned about their futures, concerned about their jobs, and quite rightly so. So we have an absolute obligation to our staff to make sure that they are not only informed but are involved. We must do that. And we have to make sure that we get the comms right with the community, and that the community is as involved as possible with shaping the future. After all, in my view, we are taking a really tough decision here tonight, because what we're saying is that Thurrock Council, formed in, 1936, will no longer be here in 2 years' time. That is a momentous decision that we're taking. We're doing it, though, because we believe that it's in the best interests of those people that live here. We have to demonstrate that. We have to take them with us. We have to involve them at every stage of this process. But we have to sit down and work out how we're going to do that, and that may take us a little time. Councillor Hartstein.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to say, obviously, to fully support the recommendations this evening. I just wanted to pick up on something that Councillor Muldowney is saying, that obviously we talked about the cost of it being, sort of over 300,000 for something that's only probably going to last a year or round about then. But it's actually something you picked up on as well about the pre-election period and the fact that the work stops, and that would worry me that if we did continue with the elections this year, it would worry me that that might make slippage in terms of the timeline for having to put everything on hold for 6 weeks and where we would manoeuvre on from that. So just wanted to outline that point as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Worrell.
Thanks, Leader. So without repeating everything that I said in the earlier meeting at General Services, I think that as councillors, it's quite an honour to be sitting here tonight, to be able to help shape the future of Thurrock, and put forward that we'd like to be part of this. We can't take it as a given that we'll even be accepted for this round. So devolution's not new to this council. We've been so far down the road before. And very nearly got there, but I just feel that this time this is it this time, and I just think that it's exciting times for us here in Thurrock to be part of that. And the government's been quite bold in bringing this forward so quickly and so radically, and giving so much powers out to communities and councils, that I think it's quite exciting times to be a councillor, and I'm looking forward to being part of that. It's like a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really help shape the future here in Thurrock, and to improve the services for our residents, the really big stuff, the infrastructure, the transport services. And this really, really will be life-changing. And we do have to say that we'll need to do this work at pace. We'll have 7 months from that letter landing to get together with other councils to work out the ins and the outs, and dot the I's and cross the T's, and put together a proposal that's going to work and will be legislated. So, there is a big piece of work. So I don't want to get into the ditch about arguing about whether we should cancel an election or we shouldn't cancel an election. I think that we need to take those 7 months and get on with the job, because we need to get this right. We cannot let the residents down, and that's why we have to make sure that this is cross-party. We all take our political hats off, and we all get this work done. And should we be accepted, we have a commitment to our residents to not let them down, because they've been let down too many times. So I, for one, I'm ready to do that, and to move away from the he said, she said, because there's a big job to be done. And I only hope that the government does accept us for this round, and we can get on with the job pretty soon. Thank you.
Councillor Worrell, thank you. Any further contributions? No? Councillor Hooper.
Yeah, I take it in going for the first tranche, we're in a better place to negotiate a better deal for Thurrock. Because I think if we leave it, it'll be imposed anyway. So I think, wise we're at this particular stage, we can negotiate a better deal for Thurrock. I'm hoping that the government will assist us with our financial position better, because no other local authorities really want to take on that level of debt that we currently have, for example. But I'm really hoping that in terms of negotiations with government, we get a better deal by being part of the first tranche.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. And I think there are, for me, two things there. The first is that the government has been very clear since day one, since July the 5th, that this will be devolution by default. And what that means is that you can come along willingly and have the ability to, in some way, shape your own future. Or they will wait for the legislation to be enacted and force you to do it. So, clearly we have some leverage by saying that we will go early. On your second point about the council finances and the level of debt, I think one of the differences will be that at the moment we go to government and we make our case for having some debt relief, for having different ways of dealing with the debt. But we're on our own. In 6 months' time, we are likely to be looking at who we're going to partner with in creating this new authority. So there'll be 4 or 5 authorities that are going to government, banging the same drum and supporting us in asking for new ways of helping us to deal with that debt. And I think that greater number can only be good for us. Dealing with that debt can only be good for residents. So I think you're right. That's the bit that gives me hope. What government don't want to do is to start a brand new authority with a level of debt that is just beyond them, that they can't cope with. They want to make sure that new authorities have a chance of success. It won't mean writing the debt off, but it may well mean giving us the tools to deal with it. Councillor Holloway.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I will be supporting the recommendations on the advice of General Services and building on everything that colleagues have already said. There has been years and years of devolution across the country, and various reams and reams of research about the real successes and the opportunities. And I think 50% of the population in England, over 27 million people, already have a directly elected Metro Mayor. So I think we really are following, kind of standing on the shoulders, as they say. So I definitely will be supporting these recommendations and getting down to that work. And we can't be distracted by elections. As colleagues have said, there have been many in recent times. I think for me, it's just really, really important for those that are negotiating that we keep the power that we have as an authority already. Thurrock is a very powerful unitary authority. We make a great deal of achievements just by ourselves, and making sure that we grow that strength and grow those achievements with our partners, and that devolution doesn't derail our progress that we've been making over the last few months. That's all, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. I've seen nobody else indicate, so I'm going to move to the recommendations. Recommendation 1, for the reasons set out in the report, the Cabinet is recommended to agree 1.1 to commit to the Government's priority programme for devolution, enabling the Council to focus on working with neighbouring authorities to develop the devolved strategic authority alongside local government reorganisation. Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you. 1.2, to agree that as a consequence of participation in the Government Devolution Priority Programme, the Leader and Chief Executive approve a letter to the Secretary of State asking to postpone local elections to be held on the 1st of May 2025. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. 1.3, if 2.2 is agreed, which it has been, where there is agreement between the Council and one or more partner authorities to submit a joint letter to the Secretary of State. Is that agreed? Thank you. And the new 1.4 is that we establish a cross-party member working group to inform the devolution and local government reorganisation debate and policy of the Council. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the meeting. Can I thank everybody for their attendance, and those who are leaving, wish you a safe journey home.